because I think this is a pretty valuable thing to learn. All right, especially if it's a sort of thing where, or a sort of situation, to overuse a term, where you don't have faith in yourself that you're going to remember where all the different keys are for all the different things I'm showing you. Oftentimes, you could just write a program to actually do the computation for you. It's kind of a nifty little way of handling things, right? So what we're going to do is create a program for the empirical rule. There is not. There is not. And so that's kind of a quirk when it comes to me. I can't, like in a trigonometry class, I can't write tan, like for the tangent function. I can't write it correctly the first time because my login is tcan, and I'm always typing that or writing that, and so it always is TC. Oh, okay, get rid of the C. It's TA. And so I type example so frequently that if the letter E comes, the letter X usually comes right after it, and I can't stop myself. So a little something about me that you didn't want to know, but now you know. So the empirical rule, that's the 68, 99, 90, 95, 99.7% rule. And the pen thing is still going to be an issue. I will use my finger, though, because that seems to be a little bit better. I talked to the dean just a few moments before class began, and he said that he's working on getting styluses for all the teachers who use these podiums so that they could actually write something legible for their classes. So anyway, we learned last class or the class before, I can't remember, that about 68% of the data will lie within one standard deviation of the mean. So that's X bar plus or minus 1S. We also learned that about 95% of the data will lie within 2 standard deviations of the mean. And 99.7 approximately would be within 3 standard deviations of the mean. Right. So the purpose of writing a program will be twofold. One, it'll be a nice way to actually have this information stored in your calculator so you don't have to memorize it. You don't have to take up valuable space on a note card. You'll just have it in your calculator. All right, so that's number one. And then number two, we'll get it to actually do the work for you. Right? I've always had an issue with people because just in general, I have people issues. So what happens is I'm not stupid. So throughout the course of my career, I've noticed that people do things that they probably shouldn't do. Right? One of my favorite students in the high school, I was going around and helping people do some stuff on their calculators, and hers wasn't open. And so I wanted to show her how to do something, so I took the lid off, and I noticed that she had pretty much the entire course written on the inside of the cover of her calculator. I was like, oh, well, that takes a little bit of the shine off of this. It's like you're not as great as I thought you were. But then also I install programs on in people's calculators, and after I do that, I take a quick look to make sure that they got installed properly. And then I see like a list of other programs in there. Now, curiosity gets the best of me. I don't go looking in the program because I want to catch somebody cheating. I go looking in the program to see if they created a cool program that I could actually get from them. And then I go in there and I see that all they did was just like type some stuff, like the quadratic formula or something like that. And my response to that is, if you're going to take the time to write a program to just put notes in there, you're wasting your time. Make it do the math for you too. All right? I don't consider that cheating because I would give you the formulas anyway. Like, just if you're going to put it in the program, make it do the math too, right? Don't just have it so that you can reference it. You know, like that, you don't need a library. You got a note card. You just write it down on that. Make it do the math also. So that's what we're going to learn about here. All right. I want the calculator at a minimum because this is the tedious part. Once you have these three values, everything else kind of works itself out. All right. So what we're going to do is go into the program editor. So it's the program key. And you might have a blank slate. You might have some programs in there. I know I put some programs in some of your calculators, but I don't think I did it for everyone. All right, and so that's fine. We're going to put them in together anyway. So you're going to hit the right arrow to new. And when we do this, you're going to pick up some skills along the way, and you might say, okay, I can use that for, and fill in the blank. You could say I can write a program for this other thing, very similar. And I'll show you how to do the TI version of copying and pasting. All right, so hit enter on create new, and then we're going to call it something. You can call it anything you want, but you're limited in terms of the characters. You're not going to be able to get the whole empirical rule in there. EMP is fine, I guess. You hit program, and then hit the right arrow till you get to new, and then hit enter. The alpha lock is on, so it's a hunt and peck kind of situation. You're just looking on your keypad for the alphabetical values, aka letters. EMP specifically, I don't think you're going to confuse that for electromagnetic pulse, so I think you'll be fine. Be careful before you hit enter. Once you title a program on these calculators, it locks it in, and you can't edit it. The only way that you could change the program name would be to copy this program into a new program that you've retitled, and then delete the original program. All right, so there's no editing the title. Right, it's not impossible to work around that. It's just a pain. All right, so you're satisfied with the title. You hit enter. Now you have the program titled EMP. All right. So we know that this is going to give us empirical rule information. So the first thing I want the user of this program to do is put some data in the calculator, right? So with the empirical rule, there's two possibilities. One would be a ordinary list. Another would be a frequency list. All right, so we're going to assume a frequency list because that's the more complicated situation. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to select input. Now, it's kind of weird because when you're in the program editor, hitting the program key again does something completely different than what it did before. So if you're in the home screen and you hit program, it brought you to the execute, the edit in the new columns. Now when I hit program, it brings us to this set of menus. All right, control, input, output, color, and execute. The execute column, I'll just work from right to left. The execute column only has one item in it, the program that I just titled, I just created. I mean, it's a blank program, it's not going to do anything. But what this function allows you to do is create a subroutine, right? Which is basically a program running inside of another program, right? So if within one program you wanted to call on another program to perform a calculation for you or something like that, you might find it in this list, and you could just hit enter on the one that you want, and then it'll just bring it up into your list or into your program. Color, I think, is obvious. If you don't have a color screen, you don't have a color menu. All right. So if you're wondering about that, that is the answer. I/O, input output. That's where most of the magic happens. Right? Because if you're going to ask a person to input data, you can probably guess it's going to be in the input output menu. All right, so we're going to select input, and that brings it into the first line of code. All right. When you select the input option, it gives you a little bit of freedom. you can include a string of characters and then give it a command to actually request the information. So what we're going to say here is, what is the data? Like X values or something like that. Like you want the person to know what they're putting in when this command comes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit second plus alpha plus. So, okay, screwed that up already, but let me show you how to fix your situation if you get knocked out of the program editor. So that happened to me. I hit the wrong thing. So I quit out of it. I was in this menu. I was in the memory menu. I meant to hit alpha plus. I hit second plus accidentally. This is not where I want to be. So I hit quit. Second mode brought me to the home screen.
So it should be alpha plus.
It should be alpha plus. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to say, well, did I just lose everything? Everything automatically gets saved in your program. So if you get kicked out of it, you can just go back in. So I got kicked out of it, so I'm going to go to Program, Edit, and then hit Enter on the program I want to edit, and it just brings me back to where I left off. All right. So that's going to happen to all of us at some point. It just happened to me in the very first step. So, I mean, you had to learn it at some point, so no time like the present. So alpha plus, open quotes. All right, this is your way of telling the program that what you want is a display of characters. All right, you don't, because the letters in a calculator, they're symbolic. Like the letter A stands for a number, so does the letter B and the letter C and the letter D. If I put 3 letters next to each other without quotations, the calculator thinks I just want to multiply those 3 letters. So if I write A, B, C without quotes, it's going to take the value for A, the value for B, and the value for C and multiply them all together. That's not what I want. What I want is for the person using the program to know what to type in. So what I'm going to do is tell the person what to type in. I'll keep it simple. X, because we have X values and F values, right? So I'm going to do X and then a question mark. Alpha negative symbol brings up a question mark. Just the ordinary XT, which is this bad boy right here. The XT theta n.
I did alpha log.
That works too. Same thing. All right. The question mark is alpha and then that negative symbol right next to the decimal point. Say it again. Oh, okay. So hit clear, then hit program, right arrow to IO, and then option 1, and then alpha plus X, then alpha negative symbol, and you should be back where we are. What's that? All right, so now I'm going to close my quote. So alpha plus again. So now if I ran the program at this point, it won't really do anything except display X with a question mark next to it, which I guess is something. It's a little mini win. We're going to hit the comma key. Comma is right above the 7. It's its own key. And then we're going to type in L1, so second one. Comma. Right above the 7 is the comma key. Like the key above the 7 key. All right, once you do that, hit enter. It'll lock that in as a line of code and allow you to put in a new line.
What does the question mark next to the X represent?
A question. Yeah, it's not a symbol. It's like what a question mark ordinarily represents. So, like, this is my way of telling the person using the program, what are your X values? So I'm just writing it in shorthand. Right? So we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to ask the user of the program to input the F values also, frequency values. So same stuff, just instead of the X, we're going to put an F, and instead of L1, we're going to put an L2. So program IO input alpha plus gives you the open quote. Well, open close quotes, they look exactly the same. Alpha cosine brings up the F. Alpha negative brings up the question mark again. Alpha plus brings up the quote, comma, L2. Second 2 for L2. All right. Now hit enter after you do that. Now stay where you are. Don't do what I'm about to do. I just want to show you what this portion of the program would look like. All right. So program, empirical rule, enter. It asks me for the X values. All right. When I run the program, I'd have to input these X values. The one little caveat is that you'd have to put them in a set of squiggly brackets, but we'll survive. So I'll just do that real quick. So second parentheses, you have 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, whatever. Just making up data off the top of my head. Those would be my X values. And then we do the same thing for frequency. So let's say this one occurs 10 times, 12 times. Each X value has a corresponding frequency. So this would be like typing the values into L1 and L2. And then it says done because I didn't tell it to do anything after that. It's like, okay, cool, I did that. All right, so now what did it do? Well, if I hit stat edit, it put those numbers into L1 and L2. All right, so it's a step in the right direction. All right, we got it to do something meaningful. All right, so I'm going back in to edit. Now I want it to run some numbers for me. All right, so the numbers that I want are pretty straightforward. I want the mean, the standard deviation, and all this crap. But you do it this one time, you never have to do it again because you just run the program. You type in your data, you run the program. All right, so stat, calc, option 1. All right, so stat, calc, option 1 will be a new line of code. All right, the one variable stats. It comes up differently than the way it came up when we were actually doing it, in class. When it's in the program editor, it's just the raw programming language. Right, so it's not going to have that nice visual interface the way it normally does. But what we do now is type in second 1, comma second 2. All right, so it's going to compute the one variable stats on columns L1 and L2, where and the calculator knows this. This is a hardwired function. It knows that the L1 values are the X's, the L2 values are the frequencies that go along with those X's. So when I hit enter, it locks that in as a line. And so now, if I were to run the program, I'm not gonna, but if I were to run the program, I would type my data in, my X values, my frequency values, and then it would compute all of those one variable statistics. But I want to go even further. I want it to do this stuff for me. All right. So what I'm going to do is actually have it do this. All right. So X bar minus 1S and X bar plus 1S. And then the same thing for 2S and 3S. All right. So all of these calculations, we just have to type it in. But again, just one time so that you never have to worry about it again. All right. So to get the first calculation, X bar minus 1S, we're going to do vars, which is right next to clear, option 5 for statistics. And you'll find that the most infuriating part about this stuff has nothing to do with understanding the language. and has everything to do with the fact that there isn't a freaking copy paste option. All right, and that's really all there is to it. So option 5, I want an X bar, so 2. I want to subtract from that 1 times S. You could just put the S if you want, but I'm going to do the 1 times. Just a little subtle reminder that it's 1 standard deviation. It's not an ordinary S, it's the SX. It's the standard deviation built into the calculator. So back into vars, statistics, this time option 3. Now, programming languages are very fickle because, or at least the basic kinds, if you don't tell it what to do with this information, it won't do anything with the information. Right? What it'll do is it'll figure out this answer and it'll keep it to itself. It would be like me giving you a test and never specifying that you had to write down the answers. So you get the test, you look at every question, you don't write a single thing down, and at the end of the class, you give me a firm nod, and then just walk out. And you say, well, you never told me to write anything down. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I write that on any of my tests. I don't say make sure to write stuff down. I mean, I say things like show all work, which is kind of, it implies, but it's very, very specific the way programming languages work. All right. And also the order in which you do things is very important. Right? So what we need to do is hang on to this number because we need to display this answer later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store that STO key, see that right above on? This is another adjustment. It says STO with a sideways arrow, but when you touch or when you tap on it, click it, whatever the right word is, it just brings up the sideways arrow. All right? The STO is to tell you that it's going to store this result in for whatever you designate it as. All right? So I'm going to call this, it's called the dummy variable, A. So alpha math to bring up the A. All right. So anytime I hit A in my home screen, that the answer, after I run this program, the answer to that calculation would come up. All right. Now we want to advance the cause a little bit more. We don't want to just leave it at that because then I have to remember, okay, the answers that I'm looking for are A, B, C, D, E. That's going to be a nightmare. So we're going to do more with this, but let's just crank out the calculations. So the next one, vars. Statistics. Option 2, that's what I was saying. There's no copy paste because it would be very nice if you just copy that, paste it, and just change the minus to a plus and the A to a B, but nope. So X bar plus 1 times vars. Statistics. Option 3. At a minimum, you're going to know where to find the X bar and SX after this. All right? A little muscle memory. Hit the store key, STO with the sideways arrow right above on, and then store this in as B. B, yeah. We're just going to go right down the alphabet. All right? So then C, D, E, and F, yeah. 2S, minus 2S, plus 2S, minus 3S, plus 3S. So, vars. Statistics. But again, you're only doing it once, so. I found over the years that people, when they run into an issue with their calculator, like some function's not working right, they're like, what, let me just reset it and start over. You're not going to want to do that. Okay, after this, after you type all this stuff in, the last thing you're going to be thinking about is restarting your or resetting your calculator. By the way, if you have one of those fancy I mentioned this on the first class. If you have one of the fancy calculators that are rechargeable, don't let it die. It wipes out all of your programs if you let that calculator die. So the minute you see it going red in the battery, plug it in. You only have to plug it in for 10 minutes, but plug it in. Vars, option 5. Sx, stored in, this time as C, vars, option 5, option 2, plus 2 times vars, option 5, option 3. Kind of pull the no looker after a while. Oops. It doesn't really matter. You don't actually have to put the multiplication symbol in, but it's just a good reminder. Alright, so at a minimum we have all the formulas stored in there, so that's something. So during a test you could say, oh well, my program doesn't work. I stopped paying attention after this moment, so but at least I have them in there so I could just go into the editor and look at the formulas. But again, you want it to do the work for you, so you're kind of defeating the purpose. What I want it to do is display these values in the correct order. Alright, so what I'm going to do is select program. So we have all our inputs. We got the data plugged into the calculator. It did something calculation wise. Now I want it to report out the answers. So program IO, we're in the output phase. All right. So in the output menu, there's a few different ways to handle this, but I think the simplest way is to just go with the display option, option 3, because it works a lot like the input function, right? So, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to type in a string, comma, the result, all right? So alpha plus, and then I'm just going to say, in some capacity, 68%. All right, so let me just check something. Yeah, there's no approximate symbol in the calculator that I know of, so I'll just say 68%. And you could just go PCT if you want, or you can go looking for a percent symbol in the catalog. Second 0 is the catalog. If you ever have trouble finding something in the calculator, then you could go into second 0. It's organized alphabetically. You'll find it in there. It just might take you a little while. I'm just going to type in PCT for percent.
What was the catalog?
Second 0. So PCT. So 68%. Close the parentheses, because again, the first computation, the first result should correspond with the 68%. Comma. Now I want it to report out the appropriate values. So I'm going to select A, comma, B, and then lock it up. All right. So if I were to run the program now, it would ask me to put in the data, so type in my data, and then it would spit out the two bounds for 68%. And then I would just have to go back to the data set, the original data set on paper, and just count up however many values. There's a way to do that, but it's more trouble than it's worth. All right. So then we're going to do the same thing for 95%. So program IO option 3. Same stuff. This time 95%. And this would call on C and D. Yeah. All right, now there is an option, a function that allows you to pause the program so that you could look at one computation after another. I don't think this is one of those situations because the numbers they're not, the results aren't going to take up too much space. It's just sometimes if you run a program, it could scroll through a lot of the earlier calculations that you might need to see and then only leave you with the display of the final calculations, and maybe you want to see that earlier stuff. That's a different conversation, I think, for a different day. But you could, in between these two displays, tuck in the command to pause. That would be, I'll just show you where it is, but it's in the program control menu. Option 8 is pause. So you could pause the program so that you could stop, take a look at that result, take note of it, do something with it, and then continue executing the program. But we're not going to bother with that for this program. So IO, program IO, option 3, same stuff but 99.7. And another byproduct of this is it's going to help us remember, quote unquote, remember the 68, 95, 99.7 values, which are the most commonly forgotten stuff in this unit aside from mid-range. People forget that all the time. So 99.7%, close quote, comma E, comma F. There is no save option. So if you quit out of here, it'll lock everything in and you have a saved program. The one thing you never ever, one key you never ever want to hit when you're in the program editor would be the clear key. Because if you do that, it wipes out an entire line of code. All right? Some lines are more complicated than others. If you wipe out like input A, you're not going to lose any sleep over that. If you wipe out some lengthy line of code, you're going to be crying, like literally crying. All right, so got my program locked in. So let's give it a look. I'm going to go back in time here.
Can you press enter?
Second mode is to quit out. So let's actually go back to this baby here on page, well, it's cut off, but it's the measures of variation page. Well, we already did the problem, so we know how it's supposed to play out. It'll give us the intervals, though, all in one shot. All right, so, and this is a good way to test to make sure your program is correct. All right, I did this on the other, on my iPad, so that's why there's no notes here. But these would be my L1 values. And these would be my L2 values. Okay, that looks terrible. I'll just do it this way.
So when you put in your X values, you can just put in 14 comma.
Right, but you got to put the squiggly brackets first. So program execute. It brings up program EMP. You have not executed the program yet. So hit enter, program, hit the program key. Then you're automatically in the execute menu, so just hit enter on the EMP program. It brings up program EMP, hit enter, and then you'll see the X with the question mark. So open your squiggly brackets and then type in your X values, 14, comma, 16, comma, 18, so on. Once you quit out of there, it's locked in. Yep, so second mode locks it in. Yeah, just after the last step, hit enter, and then second mode quits out, and then to run the program, select program, enter, and then enter again. And then you'll be pretty much where I am. So I typed in my X values surrounded by squiggly brackets. Now I'm going to type in my F values. So 1, comma 7, comma 14, comma 13, comma 5, comma 1.
Did you hit enter?
Yes, after the first set of data, hit.
Why is it squiggly?
It's the same as the parentheses. You just hit second.
But you have parentheses.
No, they are the squiggly brackets.
They are the squiggly
It's hard to line.
Yeah.
I hit the switch because I got some.
So I ended up pressing enter, right? And then I accidentally hit my up arrow, and then it gave me the whole
It
bunch of
opened like all of the things that he's done.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's because. Oh,
It
gotcha.
like shows me step by step, I guess, what it did. But I'm seeing a lot of thousands of numbers being added and a lot of thousands of numbers being subtracted right now.
That sounds wonderful. If you get stuck in a program that's in a loop, like the program's running and you can't get out of it, hit on and that'll interrupt the program, and then it'll give you the option to quit out of it, right? Because sometimes what happens is people will run the program, get all they need out of it, and then hit enter again for some reason, and that brings you right back into the program, which you didn't want to be in. And instead of doing it all again for no good reason, just hit on to interrupt. So 1, 7, 14, 13, 5, 1, looks like we're good. If it's not a frequency table, right, so if it's just a raw list of X values, in the F field, all you're going to do is put a 1 for every one of the X values that you typed in. So I typed in 6 X values. So if this was just an X column, if it didn't have a frequency table, what I would do in my frequency field is just type in 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. All right. So enter. All right. So it looks like it's trying to cut off the top here, and it did definitely cut off to 68%. So maybe we do want to have a pause option in there. All right. But we got the numbers. I mean, you might not remember it, but these were the numbers that we got when we did it all by hand. All right, so.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah.
Why?
All
And
right.
it,
Yeah, that's one of the aggravating things.
Look at all of the
So, how do we fix this? Well, it's a good thing this happened because I'd rather it happen with us together than with you on your own. So let's go back in and make some slight
but
adjustments.
it'll show me like the X bar minus 1 and the X bar.
no.
Oh yeah, but you don't want to have to work for it. That's the thing.
But it just goes away. It does like it just all goes away. It's done. And it won't ever show you the information back.
So let's go back in and edit our programs. There's just 2 little things that we're going to put in.
How do we get to the end value after we press enter?
Hit enter, yeah.
Alright, so just enter. Did you clear all of it?
What's that?
Did you end up clearing everything?
I just hit clear, yeah.
See, I hit clear for
I'm going
one
to show
of
you.
them.
Yeah. What's that?
I said I hit clear and it just took out 1 bar. One like.
Wait, are
answer.
you in the editor?
No, I don't know.
Every time he pushes the arrow, it
Yeah, so like.
Oh,
all the way down
Go
here.
all the way down to the bottom until you, yeah, now.
Where I'm making my life easier. Instead of having to clear.
All right, let's make a slight edit, and then we'll go through the data set again, and you'll see that it'll work. All right. So, program, right arrow to edit, hit enter. That allows you to make adjustments to your program. The old program, right arrow, that puts you in the edit, and then hit enter. Now, we want to make the edits towards the bottom of the program because that's where it displays everything. And really, it's just 2 little things that we're going to do. So on the D of display for the second display, so the 95%, so get your cursor right on that and then hit second delete. Second delete means insert. All right, that's how you tuck a new line of code in between 2 previous lines of code. So second, delete. Now it's a different kind of blinking cursor. Hit enter, and it just shifts everything down. Then hit the down arrow onto the display, the D for display for the 99.7, and do the same thing. So second, delete, enter.
Also, what you want to do is add a pause to every one.
I want to add a pause to each one. The last one doesn't matter because that's the end of the program anyway, but I'm going to throw in a pause for each.
Do it one more time after you stop at the.
So you get it right on the D. Second delete is insert, then hit enter. And it should move it down a line. All right, we have two empty fields. The first empty field, well, actually in both of them, we're going to put in the command to pause. So program, it's in the control menu, option 8 is pause. And then we do the same thing in the next open field. So program, option 8. It's a very subtle adjustment, and it doesn't seem like it would amount to much, but it is pretty significant. All right, so second mode to quit out of there, locks everything in place. All right, again, avoid that clear button like the plague. All right, you don't want anything to do with that clear button when you're in the program menu. It's just the end of days. All right, so there's one little thing that may or may not work depending on the kind of program that you use. So in this case, we already have the data saved in L1 and L2. So you're like, well, I would really like to use I already typed it in. You know, I want to use this data. I don't want to have to retype it. So when we go into the program, so program execute, it brings up again the title of the program. It hasn't run the program yet. So you hit enter. It'll ask you for your X values. Try typing in just L1. All right. It'll store L1 into L1. Sometimes it creates a logic loop and it breaks the program, not permanently, but sometimes it works. All right. If it doesn't immediately give you an error, it probably worked. Second 2, and that's no, because the command L1 and L2 already have like an implied squiggly built in. Program, EMP, enter, and then second 1, enter, second 2, enter. So now you look at it and say, oh, well, this is great, but it didn't give me all the stuff I wanted. Remember, it paused. So it's
Take down the information and then move
Yes.
to the next step.
Mine says quit or OK.
okay, so quit. All right.
And then you can just redo the information.
Yeah, you'll have to retype the information. All right. So I'll do it again from top to bottom in a minute. It's just if you didn't have the data stored in L1 and L2 already from the first go around, it's not calling on any data. So it's not gonna have anything to compute. All right. So the big question is, all right, well, we got our 68% values. What about the 95? Hit enter. It unpauses it. Now we have our 95. Hit enter again. It unpauses it. It still cuts off the 68 stuff at the top, but we had time to take note of that information. So it's irrelevant now. We're good. All right. So just introducing a line where you're just telling the program to pause is really all it takes. All right. So let me do it again from the top. And I'm going to assume that there's no data stored in my calculator. All right.
She has a question.
Those two values you left for the 98, I'm sorry, yeah, all that stuff. Wasn't one supposed to be a positive value and one a negative value?
Not always. I know for the outlier question it worked that way, but not for this. Gotcha. I'm going to clear out all this information here. This menu, stat edit. All right, so I'm just wiping out all my data. If you hit stat, if you're one of the folks who got an error message when you tried running the program, if you go into stat edit and you don't see any data there, that's why you got the error. All right. So there's two ways we can operate with this program. You could actually just type the data directly into L1 and L2, or you could use the squiggly bracket approach that we were just using. So that's what I'm going to do. Program EMP exec is short for execute. That means run the program. All right. We don't want to edit. We don't want to create a new one. We just want to run the program that's there. So hit enter. It brings up the command to run the program. It has not run the program yet. So I hit enter again. Now it's running the program. At this point, I type in all of my X values in the squiggly bracket. So second open paren, 14, comma, 16, comma, 18, comma, 20, comma, 22, comma, 24. All right. Once you hit enter, it is now going to store all of that information into column L1. So that's what just happened. Open a squiggly, second open paren, 1, comma, 7, comma, 14, comma, 13, comma, 5, comma, 1. All right. So all the corresponding F values are stored in there. All right. Hit enter, it stores those values into L2. And computes the one variable stats and figures out X bar minus 1s and X bar plus 1s and reports those values to us. Then it pauses. Then it computes, well actually it already did all the computations, but now it's going to present to us the 95% interval, which is X bar minus 2s and X bar plus 2s. All I have to do is hit enter to make that happen. That's my second interval. And then I just do it one more time, right, to get my 99.7% interval. And there it is. Et voila. All right, so now you have, appreciate that. You have the program to do the work for you and also serve as a reminder of what the formulas are to begin with. All right, so it's a win, 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 win for you, win for you, a win for you. Everybody gets a win.
Why is that when I scroll up, it just goes to an error? Like
When
I press the up arrow to look at the other numbers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why we put the pause function in there.
Okay.
Yeah, because it won't let you scroll up. So we put the pause in there so that you can look at the information one chunk at a time.
Okay.
All right.